everybody, and welcome back once again for another weekly forecast. My name is Yelena Crawford, and I am an intuitive astrologer. If we haven't met already, welcome to my channel. I'm super happy to have you. Make sure to tap that subscribe button below if you are interested in receiving weekly astrological updates, plus a lot of additional astrological content that I will be creating for all of you. And if you are a current subscriber, then thank you so much for coming back for another week full of astrology updates. And I'm so grateful and happy to be able to bring all of this information to you. So we have a really exciting week in astrology because we've got a lot of shifts in energy. So that's always a good thing, right? Especially when we feel kind of stagnant, or lately a lot of anxiety and kind of neurotic tension has been going on. And it'll be nice to see that shift a little bit in the weeks to come, especially this week when a lot of new aspects and things are set into motion. So this forecast is going to be for Friday, June 18th, all the way through June 24th on Thursday. So just a couple housekeeping things as usual before we begin. Make sure that it's very important that you first watch the general forecast here at the beginning so that you can get the context to what your 12 signs forecast will entail. So like I said, at the end of the video, we are going to be doing a forecast for all 12 signs, and you can check for your sun sign and rising, but I do suggest that you check for your rising sign, which is going to be more predominant and accurate based off of your own personal birth chart. And also you can check for your moon too. It's going to be more of like an internalized subjective experience rather than actual events that could actually happen in your life. But you can always check for that as well. I do use the tropical Western Zodiac with a mix of modern and ancient Hellenistic astrology. I'm in the Eastern time zone. So if I do say a time and I forget to say Eastern, you'll know where the time is coming from, and you can adjust accordingly based off of where you live in the world. If you are looking to make a little bit more sense off of these energies and what is happening specifically in your own personal life, you can schedule a private consultation reading with me below. The description box will have the link where you're able to do that. And one final little housekeeping item here, please make sure to add me on Instagram. You can find me at Yelena Crawford 1111. I'll pop that up on the screen. I make and create my own astrological content with beautiful graphics and everything to help educate you on the current energies that are coming in, as well as a lot of your personal placements and numerology and a lot of different fun things like that. All right, so I think that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and get into the general forecast for all of you. I'm not going to be going day by day. I just want to highlight some of the important things because we've got the summer solstice, we've got the sun entering Cancer, we've got a retrograde beginning, and then we've got a retrograde ending, as well as a full moon. So this is really an action-packed 7 days that we have ahead of us. Just a little bit of hindsight. We just came out of that Saturn-Uranus conjunction, which really brought a lot of craziness in the news and things that were happening in the world. There was a lot of rolling blackouts. I heard of a lot of fires. And I just heard of an overall nervous tension and kind of just neurotic feeling that a lot of people were experiencing. Some people were actually experiencing this in their physical body, this nervous tension that was building up. Some people were having a lot of physical symptoms because of that. And just a lot of roadblocks really that are coming up in our lives where we're trying to make these changes. We're trying to shift forward in some way and liberate ourselves from some sort of circumstance. But there's obviously another tilt to the story that just occurred with the Saturn-Uranus situation. So that's kind of where we've come from. We just came out of eclipse season. We've been in a Mercury retrograde, and all that Mercury retrograde is making a challenging communication over to Neptune, which is really bringing this lack of clarity. It's really challenging our focus and being able to see things clearly in our own lives, and has been really taking us deep into our shadow, which we will talk a little bit more once we get into the information on Mercury moving forward again. But we'll go ahead and start with Sunday, June 20th, which is really when I think the most pivotal and important thing that we really need to talk about this week, and that's the summer solstice. So the summer solstice is when the sun enters into Cancer, right? And then also on this day, we've got a Jupiter retrograde. So let's go ahead and start with the Jupiter retrograde. Retrogrades obviously are a time when the energy, the usual outward energy of that planetary body is taken inward. So we become more introspective, we become more contemplative, and it kind of makes us be able to see things in a different way when we internalize them, and we kind of slow down a little bit with respect to the planet's apparent slowing down in motion when it hits its retrograde or it stations to move backwards. So basically, Jupiter is the planet of knowledge and wisdom, higher learning, teachers, gurus, all of those kinds of things. It also represents spirituality and religion, and also our own personal perspectives and belief systems about life, our own sense of morals and ethics, and how we operate out in the world based off of our own personal perspective on things and our own belief systems, because that obviously changes our behavior. It changes the way that we interact with other people, right? But obviously the positive beneficial qualities of Jupiter are always luck and expansion and the opportunity for self-development and growth. But just as much as there are positives, and Jupiter is a benefic and amazing planet that brings optimism and a jovial attitude and perspective on things, it can also magnify things. So if it does maybe hit a more challenging planet in your chart, or maybe it's making a challenging aspect to a certain planet, it can also bring overinflation of things like the ego or bad habits and tendencies. It brings excess and overindulgence. So we obviously want to kind of bring in both sides of the story here. So we're not just spiritual bypassing or bypassing any of the negativity, and we're painting ourselves a clear picture of how this could go. So basically, Jupiter retrograde, obviously their cycles are kind of erratic, the planets, but usually it happens every 9 months or so, and it will be in retrograde for about 4 months at a time. But this is very give or take, depending on the planet cycle of that year. But this could really internalize your growth. Okay, instead of really expanding in an external sense, like being given a lot of external opportunities, or maybe a teacher comes into your life, or you have this big, profound life view that happens from some external circumstance, these things are all really made internal. So this is going to be a big opportunity, because Jupiter's in the sign of Pisces, for spiritual growth. I would not be surprised if there were more awakenings that were taking place on the planet, where people have a major shift in perspective about the way that they see the world, about their own spiritual and religious belief systems, about the way that they were raised and their conditioning. So anyways, that's kind of like my take on the Jupiter retrograde, but really there's no coincidence at all that the Jupiter retrograde is happening in tandem with the sun moving into Cancer, and it's moving out of the chaotic information overload and neurotic and anxiety prone sign of Gemini, right? Where there's just been information coming out of nowhere. We're really taking our viewpoints inward. We've been receiving all of this influx of information during Gemini season, literally like there's information coming out of the freaking seams of our houses. In the media, I mean, we don't know what to believe. There's so much going on, and even in our own personal lives, really, there's so much going on. We've been having this constant thought process with this Mercury retrograde, and now we have this opportunity where the sun is moving into Cancer, and it's this opportunity to slow down and move from our mind and our mental state in this constant chatter, monkey mind situation, into our heart, into our emotions, and into our feels and our intuition, and kind of changing that perspective. And it's just happening when this Jupiter is like taking us inward to really take all this information that we've received and kind of reconstruct our beliefs about it all. Reconstruct our own individual perspective about what the hell is going on in our own lives and out in the world, so that we can formulate and move forward with what we believe and not what everybody else is telling us on the outside. So really don't believe that there's any coincidence that this is all kind of coinciding and happening together. It's really going to be important that we sink into our intuition and we kind of craft our own perspective about the world and the events that are taking place, right? Because I really don't feel like we are out of the dark yet. And I hate to say that, but as an astrologer, I think it's our job to be completely transparent without transmitting fear or anything like that. But let's go ahead. Now that we're talking about the sun moving into Cancer, this is the summer solstice. And now the summer solstice it's the longest day of the year. First and foremost, it's when light dominates. So it is the time of the year when there is the most light versus dark. And so in the northern hemisphere, summer solstice, southern hemisphere, of course, it's winter. But it's when the sun on its path along the ecliptic, it reaches the highest point, which is the Tropic of Cancer. It's also referred to as the pole star, I believe. Everything is most alive in the summertime, right? And it's kind of the feeling that we get. Like, if you think about it, it is a celebration, because in Cancer season, it's when we have the 4th of July. Cancer rules over things like lakes and celebrations with family and barbecue and all of those kinds of things, hosting events and family gatherings with people that we love and that we want to nurture and we want to care for. And that's what we get in the summertime during Cancer season near the summer solstice. But this is also a celebration of ourselves, and it's a celebration of stepping more into our emotions, getting into the feels and reconnecting with our emotions and really truly what we want deep in our core, which sometimes the monkey mind tries to tell us one thing, but our body's trying to tell us another thing. And we tend to more times than not, for most people anyways, ignoring the body and ignoring the intuition. And our body has an innate intelligence and is able to really kind of guide and direct us when we have a strong connection to it. So really, Cancer season to me represents building that connection back to myself, no matter how far I've strayed from that. Especially after this crazy Mercury retrograde and all of this eclipse energy, sometimes we tend to get disconnected, and we really need to nurture that connection that we have with ourselves, which is Cancerian energy. It's all about nurturing, right? So I think it's going to be a little bit of a slowdown. We've been in this very busy masculine air sign of Gemini. There's been a lot of that energy. I mean, we've had so much of a pileup of planets and eclipses in the Gemini energy. And now we're in water. Water is more feminine. It's more receptive. We are going to have some time to rest and retreat and kind of reflect over some of the shifts that are already taking place in all of our lives, right? We might feel exhausted, like we need to just kind of relax and maybe let loose a little bit and enjoy the presence, because we've also got Venus in Cancer, which is our relationships. And it's where we seek out pleasure, which is with loved ones, which is with, food and drink and comforts and safety and security with the people that we love to be around. So I just really love the summer solstice. It's a great time. I don't know if it has anything to do with me being a Cancer rising and Cancer moon. So this is also ruled by the moon, which is a natural reflector of light. So I think that we could really learn a lot about ourselves and our circumstances and everything that's going on in our lives by observing everything that's being reflected back to us, whether that be the relationships that we're in with other people, right? Because our relationships are our biggest mirror and our biggest teachers. So we can just kind of be receptive and observe the relationships that we have in our lives. Are they really serving us? What are they reflecting back to us? Is it our shadow qualities? Is it the aspects of ourselves we don't really believe in ourselves? So these people are reflecting that back to us by not believing in us, right? Or maybe even just taking a look at yourself in the mirror, right? And I don't say this in terms of like self-hate and looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking, oh, I don't like the way that I look, or being overly critical about the way that you look. I just want to, spur your curiosity to see what your reaction of yourself is as you take a look at yourself in the mirror. Is it a positive reaction? Coming from a stance of self-love rather than criticism, right? And kind of using that as a mirror to see where you might need to nurture yourself a little bit more, where you may need to connect with yourself on a deeper level and love yourself for all of you. All of who you are, all of your faults and every single aspect. And then on Monday, June 21st, I just wanted to shine some light on this beautiful aspect that we had this day. I think this is one of the greatest aspects, pretty much. It's Venus in the sign of Cancer, and that is trining Neptune and Pisces. So a trine is obviously going to be very harmonious energy that just flows very easily. So these are going to be really flowy and supportive dynamics in our lives as it pertains to like our harmony and our connection with things that are spiritual in nature, or maybe even just our connection to our sense of individual creativity and our self-expression and the way that we express ourselves through our creative endeavors. Or this is also really good energy for people who have spiritual businesses or creative businesses. Maybe you're an artist or something like that. This is very supportive, and with Venus ruling things like money and finances, this could potentially be a really supportive energy in a sense where maybe you get some more clients, or you're able to bring in some more money, or you get another job or something that really helps to support you in expressing yourself in these creative ways like you like to. But overall, just a really good energy for people who are in spiritual professions and things like that too. This could also bring a lot of compassion and affection in relationships, where we're able to really let our guard down and remove those boundaries that block our hearts so that we can really connect on a deeper level with the people that we love. And it's also obviously tied in with that Piscean energy and Venus being overindulgence. This could bring in a tendency to indulge a little bit too much, which I'd say it's overall a great energy for indulging in the sensual experience and really enjoying life with your friends and celebrating. But of course, we want to watch out for the overindulgence and taking things a little bit too far, which could bring in addictive tendencies or a need to escape reality. So those are all things too. But I think it's really just a great energy for creativity of all sorts, really a really nice loving connection with friends, romantic partners, even family members. Let's go ahead and move on, because I wanted to spend a little extra time on the Mercury retrograde dynamic, because this has been a very challenging Mercury retrograde, I know for me, but I'm associated with other astrologers that I work with on a daily basis, and I know it's been really challenging for everybody that I know personally, including my family members and some of my friends and everything too. So basically on Tuesday, June 22nd, Mercury will be stationing direct, which means that it comes to another standstill and it prepares to move forward once again through the area of the chart that it moved backwards in, which is referred to as the shadow, okay? So basically with the Mercury retrograde, we've been moving through the shadow, which can literally and figuratively mean that we are moving through our own internal shadow aspects, okay? And I know this one has been really challenging, and I learned so much about Mercury retrograde and what it means in general just from this specific transit. So, the bad comes with the good. It's really bittersweet. Yeah, we might have to go through challenges, but as an astrologer, at least I'm learning something, I guess you could say. And hopefully you guys can look at that too, and we can kind of make light of it in that sense. So it's going to be stationing at exactly 16 degrees. You can take a look in your chart and see if you have anything in Gemini at 16 degrees or aspecting 16 degrees. And of course, if you want help making sense of this, you can always schedule a personal reading with me by clicking the link in the description box below. But the last Mercury retrograde that we had in Gemini was in May of 2015. So if you think back to that time period, you might see some similar themes potentially. It doesn't always have to be. It doesn't mean that the same people will come back, but it could. It could have brought people back from that time period of life, or it doesn't even have to be from that time period, of course. But the effects are always going to be stronger and more chaotic on the station dates. So when Mercury stations to go retrograde, and then when Mercury stations again to move direct. So that's going to be June 22nd, Tuesday. It could be a day before or after, give or take, when things could potentially get a little bit more chaotic. We have to remember too that Gemini is automatically going to be that nervous energy, kind of anxiety prone, a little bit neurotic. So I know that I've really been feeling this, and I know a lot of people have, so it's a potential that it could increase specifically around this date and time range. And we're also not out of the dark yet, because Mercury still has to move forward with more awareness into that shadow period. So it just really depends on what was going on for you personally during the shadow. Did you work with the energy well? Were you really self-aware and kind of like double and triple checking things and all of those types of things? Or were you kind of lacking in that department and maybe in your shadow qualities and a little bit more unconscious of the things that were going on in your life? Then these things will really be brought to light now that Mercury is going to be moving direct. So instead of it being an internal dynamic, you might actually see a physical manifestation of the consequences in your external experience, right? So maybe you were dealing with some bad habits or, some habit patterns or things like that during the Mercury retrograde. And when it moves direct, potentially, maybe there's a manifestation like there's an issue with your job because you haven't been responsible, because you've been over focusing on your bad habits, or potentially maybe some type of health crisis or something like that could manifest. Obviously, that's just one example, but it really does have this potential to kind of reveal to us in a more conscious light these things that were trying to be brought to our attention during the Mercury retrograde period. So one interesting way to look at this is that, so Mercury rules over the signs of Gemini and Virgo, which it's naturally going to affect those areas of our chart. But in order to kind of get an idea of what shadow qualities this might be bringing to the surface, we can look to the opposite sign of Gemini, which is Sagittarius, and look at some of the shadow aspects of Sagittarius to see what could be brought to the forefront. Sometimes with Sagittarius, it is this tendency to kind of just look at the bigger picture and forget about the details. So we might be taking things for face value and really taking them in as our own perspective and our own belief systems and being self-righteous about it and like speaking that to other people like it's this big grand truth, when really we haven't done the work to do the research and kind of fact check, and we really don't know the truth because we have not examined it in detail. So that can be kind of one of the things that we definitely want to look out for. Now, just to give you another example, if we look at Virgo, the opposite sign is Pisces. And some of the shadow qualities of Pisces could be what comes up in these shadow periods, right? Mercury retrograde shadow periods. And with Pisces, this could tendency be like martyrdom and victimhood. I wrote down a couple examples just because I know I say this, but it can be hard for us to like put it into perspective in our own lives or understand it. So like I wrote an example of maybe somebody that's says that they're being taken advantage of at work, and they probably are, right? Like their boss is like, you have to be here like 6 days a week, when other people are just getting let off the hook easy or whatever, or they're not getting promotions, yet they're working their ass off, but they never speak up about it. They never like take the initiative to go talk to their boss and tell their boss what they really want, yet they want to complain about it behind the scenes to all their family and friends and everything like that and act like they're the victim. Like they have no say in the matter or anything like that, but they're not doing anything about it, right? So that's what I mean about like victimhood, but they're complaining about the abuse, but they're not doing anything about it. Another example, maybe somebody who is like abuses substances, or maybe they eat terribly, but then as a result they feel horrible and they're always in like a depressive state, or maybe they've gained a lot of weight, or they have health issues and back problems, but they're really not exercising or taking care of themselves, but they want to make it appear as if maybe they've been dealt a bad card in life or something like that. But you can clearly see that this person's choices are a result of the karma that they're, creating in their everyday lives. It's cause and effect, right? Cause and effect. So basically, they want to blame everything else and everyone else for their circumstances, but not look at themselves. So these are just a couple dynamics that could potentially come up with things like that. And then also like bypassing, spiritual bypassing, and people pleasing, playing the role of the victimed caretaker or the savior in somebody else's life, when people really maybe didn't even ask for you to be the savior at all. And you really need to learn to let the other person maybe live their own life, right? So these are just a couple different ways, or it could even bring in the topic of boundaries, because we do have a Saturn retrograde right now too. Pisces does have a more difficult time setting boundaries. So now that it's going to be moving direct, we're going to see the consequences of our actions. It's going to be bringing to light the lessons that Mercury retrograde has wanted us to learn, right? And it's really a good time to integrate everything that happened. So this is a big integration period now that we're moving into the post shadow, which will last until July 7th. And finally, we're going to go to the full moon in Capricorn, which is taking place on Thursday, June 24th. So after all this crazy energy that's been going on with the eclipses and Saturn square Uranus, we've got a Saturn-ruled full moon. Saturn is in retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. It has been square Uranus, which is just this nervous, neurotic energy as well, feeling electrical impulses in the body, this nervous tension, all of these crazy changes, shifts, maybe potential for chaotic events that could really shake up our stable foundations in life, and just having to really pivot and having roadblocks placed in the way of things where we're trying to make progress, and it can be really frustrating, right? But this Capricorn energy is nice because it illuminates our ability to take responsibility for things and set healthy boundaries and be more grounded and practical in our everyday lives, work towards our achievements and set long-term goals and be diligent at actually achieving them, right? And it also is going to illuminate our need to have self-control. So basically, the full moon in Capricorn, it really is going to help us feel more stable, more secure. But this is also going to be a really good time after we had this second hit of Saturn square Uranus, and we're starting to see like, okay, I've got these goals. I'm starting to take steps in this direction, wherever life is heading. And now I see that there's another roadblock or something is limiting me, something is restricting me. So I have to adjust my plans. I've got to adjust my goals. I've got to adjust how I'm going to move forward from here with these new revelations in the story, okay? Because there's been updates since the beginning of the year. When this first Saturn square Uranus hit, it was back in February on the 17th. So you can maybe think of where that was for you and what was going on at that time in your life. But now it's going to be important that we lay the groundwork for the next 6 months ahead, and we create a revised plan moving forward, which may have even been something that was brought to our mind during this Mercury retrograde. But now, after Mercury has stationed to move direct, we are going to be able to implement that and start taking action on it. This also brings into focus the topic of karma. This is going to be an illumination and a culmination of some of the actions that we have taken since about 6 months ago, or even just over the past month, because full moons work in cycles of 1 month and 6 months. So you reap what you sown. So maybe you can see some of the challenges that you're facing are tied in with your own choices. So this Jupiter retrograde that I spoke of earlier is going to be in a sextile with this full moon in Capricorn. And I feel like this dynamic is really gifting us the opportunity to kind of see these things in our lives, maybe these karmic entanglements that we're involved in, or maybe where we need to set a more stable and practical groundwork of plans for ourselves moving forward, or whatever it might be for you. But it's giving us the opportunity to see these things and to learn from them. But the key here is if you choose to, because with a sextile, it takes your active participation. So it's giving us that opportunity should you choose to take it. So hopefully you'll choose to take it, right? I think that that's going to be all for my weekly general forecast. And now we can move into the forecast for all 12 zodiac signs. I'm going to specifically be talking just about this full moon dynamic. And once again, make sure to check for your sun sign and your rising sign. Predominantly, the rising sign is going to take precedence and be the most accurate. And again, you can check for your moon sign if you are interested as well. And that's going to be more of a internalized experience for you, more of a subjective, personal experience for you. Aries and Aries rising. So this full moon lunation is illuminating your 10th and 4th house axis, the axis of Cancer and Capricorn. But the full moon will actually be in your 10th. So this is really bringing to light the career department and what you're doing and how you're being seen and perceived out in public. Since this is the most public part of the chart, this could be really a time when you are so much so under the spotlight. So it might bring to focus what you're doing for your career, or somehow make you more visible for your accomplishments and something that you may have been working really hard over the course of a long period of time for. If you take a peek back to January, around January 12th or 13th, that was when the new moon in Capricorn was when we started to seed the intentions for what is now culminating, coming to some type of closure, something that needs to be released related to those themes back in January, or maybe some type of celebration that needs to be had because something is reaching a culmination point. So maybe you're getting some type of raise or promotion or something like that, or potentially closing out a chapter in a previous career and starting something new, starting something fresh. This also, obviously, full moons can kind of bring this emotional tension, and there's a potential for an imbalance and some emotional issues. So it could even bring people in positions of power and authority to the forefront, where maybe there are some dynamics that you're having to deal with in that regard as well. That could be shifting the career dynamics of your life. And also Capricorn really has a lot to deal with power and control issues in general. So there may be some type of struggle with this in some way, shape, or form. But one thing is true is that with every full moon, there is an opposition involved. The sun is opposite the moon. So the sun is bringing light as well to your house of home and family. So that's going to bring in some type of dynamic where maybe something's got to give, or something with your home and family matters really need to be brought into balance or integration in order for everything to kind of just work in a seamless flow, right? There's got to be some type of either meeting in the middle or balancing out both ends. You might be super driven and focused to move in towards that career department, but maybe lacking something in the home and family, or maybe something in the home and family is really preventing you from moving forward to where it is that you need to go for your career. Maybe that's a move. Maybe it's, just discrepancies with your partner or with your parents in some way, shape, or form. But really there is an opportunity here for growth and expansion, because there is a really beautiful and harmonious sextile over to Jupiter, which is sitting in your 12th house in Pisces. And it's also, at this point, will be retrograde. So it's really going to help you to realize that you may need to be spending time resting, spending time in solitude and seclusion. And that could be what this opposition has a lot to do with the 4th house too, because that's the time that we need to be spent in private, right? Where we rest and rejuvenate, recharge our battery. So maybe this isn't your opportunity and your outlet that you're going to have to take charge on, even though you might be super motivated to move towards that career house. It may be really important for you to spend time alone, spend time in isolation, spend time in contemplation, journaling, meditating, really taking care of yourself. And that might bring you some insights as to how you can even move forward more in your career, right? Also, let's see, I would say that this could potentially bring some sort of gift or recognition or opportunity to your career life for something that you've been working really hard on behind the scenes, because the 12th house is the hidden house as well. And I like to think of the 12th house as all things pertaining to the subconscious mind and the subconscious blocks that we have, that this could have been something that you will identify, and you're able to kind of shift your perspective as it has some regard to subconscious tendencies that are blocking you from reaching that success that you've always wanted to reach, that pinnacle of your heightened career that you want to move towards or that you want to achieve, and you may be able to kind of release some type of blockage within you. But I would say spiritual life is going to be really important to expand upon right now for you. Taurus and Taurus rising. So with this full moon in Capricorn illumination, it is bringing into focus your 9th and your 3rd house. So the full moon's actually going to be occurring in your 9th, which is really highlighting and shining light on your beliefs, your personal beliefs and your perspectives about the world, and potentially how that could be limiting you or restricting you in some way. We are talking about a Saturn-ruled sign here, being that this full moon is in Capricorn. So where are you limiting yourself based off of your perspective of the world? And how can we figure out a way to release that and let that go to help move forward and make some progress in your life? So I believe that there also could be some sort of culmination or completion, wrapping something up with maybe some type of course of study, because this is the house of higher education and learning. And it's also the house of like publishing and writing and stuff like that, or it's opposing the house of writing. It's the house of publishing. So maybe you are a writer and you're finishing up some sort of book or some sort of article or project that you have been working on. And yeah, it's coming to a completion, and it's a time of celebration, right? Because when we complete something that we've been working on really hard like that, it really does need to be celebrated for all of the hard work that we've put into it. Now, there is a potential also for because this is an opposition, right? So there's definitely a challenge with the house that it's opposing, where it needs to be brought back into balance. Maybe there's like, we're swinging too far into one side and neglecting the other side, and there's just some disharmony, or maybe the two sides just really need to be integrated because there's some sort of polarity. So this is having to do with your immediate environment, this other house. And this has to do with daily busyness. It's like that daily grind, all the errands that we have to run, all of these things. And it also rules over the mind, right? But it's more so like detail-oriented, rational, analytical, breaking down the pieces of our inner workings rather than kind of seeing the bigger picture. So there could be a potential these aspects of your mind need to be like brought into a cohesive unit, or we need to just balance them out so that you can actually see a more broader perspective of the world, so that you can get rid of these blockages and really stop limiting yourself and the way that your mind can expand, which can really help you to grow and evolve and reach a pinnacle of success in your studies or something like that you might be trying to achieve. So now, because this is a completion and a culmination and a wrapping something up, we want to think back to January, I think it's 12th or 13th, depending on where you live, when the new moon in Capricorn was, because that's when we usually drop the little seeds of intention of whatever area of life is involved, which is higher learning, it's travel, publishing and writing. This is also the house of law. So if you have any legal situations going on, this is a potential when they could all be wrapping up right now. So that could be coming to close in some way, and hopefully it is to your benefit. So think back to that time, which will give you a little bit more of an idea of what this could potentially mean for you. Now, the other dynamic that's going on that's a really nice dynamic is the sextile that's occurring over to Jupiter, and that's happening in your 11th house. So sextiles are really harmonious. Usually they take a little bit of action on your part. You have to do something about it. So maybe you've been traveling or something, putting yourself out there, meeting new people in different cultures, and you happen to meet some friends because Jupiter's in your 11th house of friends, right? You happen to meet some friends who really help to kind of open your eyes to see that there's so much more in this world, and they really help to broaden and open your perspective about the world at large, your belief systems, maybe your religious beliefs and your spiritual beliefs, and it really just helps you to shift your perspective and like open up your mind and maybe awaken you to things that you would have never imagined before. Or there could be some potential to even do some traveling with friends, or meet, like I said, meet people, meet friends through your travels. I think that there's a lot of luck and support. Maybe it could be mean because the 11th house is friends, allies, and benefactors, and Jupiter is like somebody who's very wise, a guru, a teacher. There's a potential that you could meet, or maybe it's somebody that you're already involved with who's an ally that could help you really reach the pinnacle of your studies, right? Or somebody who is already potentially helping you, that's an ally. There's a lot of support in that dynamic with this person, helping you to make your dreams and your goals and your wishes all come true. So there's just a lot of support. It could play out in so many different ways. It could just be like different groups or organizations that you have the opportunity to be a part of like-minded individuals that are really helping to help you develop your studies in some way, right? These are just different ways that this could play out. Gemini rising and Gemini sun. So this full moon illumination is going to be taking place on your money axis. So this is the 8th and 2nd house, but this full moon in Capricorn is actually going to be taking place in your 8th house. And the 8th house brings a lot of things to the forefront. It's like joint finances and the way that you receive benefits and money and things like that from sources outside of yourself predominantly. It also has to do, well, basically, first and foremost, I want to bring this to your attention. Why don't you go ahead and look back to January 12th, 13th of this year, and that's when the new moon in Capricorn was, which is basically when your intentions were seated pertaining to what this full moon entails. So I want to tell you that before we really get into the nitty-gritty of it all, but this could definitely be bringing the focus and the limelight onto joint finances of some sort, or investments, or debts and taxes. So potentially there could be a culmination or a completion of paying off some type of big loan. Maybe it's a student loan of some sort or some type of business loan. Maybe there is some type of completion and letting go of joint finances. Maybe you were going through a divorce and you were separating and you had to disentangle your finances with your partner, with a business partner, and something that was maybe severed and cut away, right? So basically paying off debts, like I said before, this is really a great time too, when maybe you could be receiving news that some grant you applied for, some type of investment that you applied for, you're going to be receiving it. So this is a really great time of celebration, because the full moon can also signify celebrations of the sort as well. This is also interesting because it does have a really nice aspect to Jupiter, which I'll get into a little bit in a moment, but this is your partner's finances, it's joint finances. So maybe there's going to be some type of situation where you're really benefiting from a partner's finances, or you are benefiting from receiving some type of loan or something like that that's going to help you to build your business or move forward with your career or your business or your purpose and what you're doing out in the world. On another take, this is also the house of deep transformation. It's like that cathartic healing, transforming ourselves from the inside out. So this could really be some type of completion of some deep transformative, potentially very challenging situation that you've been going through, maybe very deep and psychological in nature, healing traumas and issues with sex and intimacy that could have been coming to the forefront. And this could potentially be that big release and letting go of a lot of those things that you've been working through. This is a good time to let that go, or maybe you're coming to a completion with it and it's a time to celebrate it, because it's that butterfly emerging from the cocoon, deep cathartic transformational moment, right? And because this is tied in with Jupiter in the 10th house, this sextile, I would say that maybe this transformation could really be helping to blossom your career, and really helping you to grow in whatever it is that you're doing out in the world, or however you're seen out in the world, right? This is also it's in an opposition, so it's going to bring some type of face-off or some type of challenge that requires balance or integration or some type of compromise, and it brings into focus your finances, how you make money, and your own personal resources and possessions. There could potentially be some sort of circumstance here where somebody might be really heavily relying on you for money, or vice versa. You could potentially be relying on another person, so you just want to make sure that that's not out of balance, and that you're kind of able to situate that in a way where there's no like power and control struggle dynamics going on, but you're able to kind of balance that out a little bit. I would also say with this sextile over to Jupiter in the 10th house, being that it's in Pisces and it's the career house, I would say that anybody who is in some type of field of study or field of career where they're working on things that are spiritual in nature or deeply creative types of career paths, or maybe you're a healer of some sort. Maybe you're working in occult fields like astrology or human design. Maybe you're a tarot reader, or you're working in psychology in some way. I would say that is all very supported right now. Very, very, very supported. And I'd say there's a potential for really a lot of expansion and growth in whatever you're doing for your business or your career, especially in those specific fields. But yeah, that's pretty much what I have for you for this week. Cancer rising and Cancer sun. This full moon is going to be illuminating your 1st and 7th house axis. So this is you and your partnerships with other people. This doesn't have to be marriage partnerships or anything like that. It can be all one-to-one relationships. This is marriage. This is long-term committed partnerships. This could be best friends. This could be business partners. Anybody that you are in a contractual agreement with. This also is the house that rules over contracts and negotiations. So I want you guys to think back to January, around January 12th or 13th, when we had the new moon in Capricorn. which is when we started seeding our intentions, or we started setting into motion what we wanted to manifest, which is just now coming into fruition, or we might even be completing it or having to make adjustments to release and let things go that aren't working, right? And having to kind of readjust whatever is going on. So this is illuminating your 7th house of partnerships, okay, and relationships of all sorts. This could also indicate, because this is an opposition, where you may be out of balance with yourself because you may have been over prioritizing some type of contractual agreement or some type of relationship that you have with another person, and you might be letting yourself, fall to the wayside, and your health and your identity or whatever it might be. Or maybe it's the other way around. You've been focusing a little bit too much on yourself, and now it's the time to kind of shine light on your partnerships, and what's important in that segment of your life. But basically, there could also indicate, because we do have Capricorn and you've got Pluto in this sign, there could be power struggles in relationships with other people. So there's this like back and forth battle, and it's being illuminated at this time. So emotions are running high. There could be some type of development as it pertains to that. Or it could just potentially be really positive. Maybe there's some type of negotiation or contract that's being finalized at this time that was something that was seeded and started back at the beginning of the year that's somehow reaching some type of culmination. This could potentially be some type of business endeavor as well, because we are talking Capricorn. Or maybe you met somebody, or maybe you have a long-term partner, and because Capricorn and Saturn are both all about commitment. So you guys could be making some type of deeper commitment to each other. Maybe there's some type of engagement and it just needs time for a celebration, right? You could be finalizing a marriage or something like that, because that all has to do with contracts that are coming to completion or being finalized. You're sealing the deal, if you will. But maybe it could also work out this way, where you are getting to a point where a relationship isn't working. Right? And something needs, because this is a release point. A full moon is a release point. So something needs to be let go of or released, or maybe just some way that you are operating in relationships with other people is not freaking working, right? Maybe they have too much power over you. They're dominating you, and you need to set proper boundaries or figure out what's working and what's not. Or maybe it's the other way around. And there's just some shifting, there's some balancing, there's some integration that needs to take place here in order for this to operate in a more harmonious way for you. But speaking of harmony, we've got a sextile, which is really harmonious and very supportive, with Jupiter, which is the luckiest planet. It's all about growth and expansion and abundance and all of those lovely things. And this is hitting this is making an aspect over to your 9th house, which is that house of higher learning, travel, and education, and all of those kinds of things. So Jupiter can also be like wise people, wise teachers, gurus, that come into our lives and really help to influence us. So this could potentially be some type of relationship that you have with somebody that's really teaching you and helping you to expand the way that you think, the way that you see the world, maybe really helping you to learn a specific subject or area of study or course that you're in. And maybe it's a professor or something that's having a big influence in your life. And it's just a lot of support and a lot of harmony, but it does require you to really take care of yourself and nurture yourself so that you can get the best out of this dynamic with this individual. But you also have to nurture the relationship with the person too, and you have to make an effort. Sextiles are all about effort. It does take some sort of effort on our part in order to make this as harmonious as it can possibly be. There also could be a potential here where you could maybe do some traveling with someone. Maybe it's like a partner that you travel with, or maybe you're doing some traveling for work or to explore your spirituality, or you want to explore the world. And you meet a partner or something like that. You have like a lot of luck and you meet your partner. Or you get to travel with your partner. You're traveling for work. Something could play out in that way. This could also play out as a big expansion of beliefs and perspectives about the world that really, really help to benefit you in how you operate in relationships with other people. There could be some limiting beliefs that could be really holding you back from truly having harmony in relationships. And that could be something that you're having a lot of support with and luck with right now, and you're able to kind of grow past. So it brings a lot of unity, and brings you and restores your faith again, once again, in your relationships with other people. Or you could be signing a contract of some sort or entering into some sort of negotiation to continue a course of study, or maybe to teach in some type of higher learning course or something like that. So these are just a couple ways that I see this playing out, but overall, really great energy. Leo rising and Leo sun. This full moon in Capricorn will be illuminating the axis of your 6th and 12th house. So this is like the axis, a lot of health and mental health for sure. It does bring in many other topics too, which we will touch on. But first, I want you guys to travel back in your mind to January 12th or 13th, depending on where you live, when we had the new moon in Capricorn. And this is when we first started to kind of seed those intentions and maybe take a couple strides towards what is now reaching this fruition or culmination or ending and completion with this full moon in Capricorn. So as I am speaking, you guys can kind of compare that to what was going on back in January, but this is really bringing to light matters of work, and your physical health, your daily routines and your habits that all contribute to your physical health, right? Whether they be good or bad habits. This is also the house of like small animals and pets. That could all be coming to the forefront at this time too. And this is the house basically that would be having to do with maybe the culmination or the ending of some sort of job that you're involved with. That could, even if you have employees, be maybe you letting go of, or giving the axe to some of your employees or something, or maybe you have a coworker that gets let go of and it brings a lot of intensity because you have a lot more of a workload that's kind of placed on your shoulders, which can be really annoying as well, because this is the house where we really toil away and work very, very hard in service in some way. Maybe you have some sort of service project, a spiritual service project that you've been working on, and it's coming to some sort of completion, finalization, or like a culmination. So this is really a great time to celebrate. This could also, on a more positive note, maybe back in January, you started some type of workout program, or you started some type of diet or health regime, or maybe you were really you had some type of physical condition or some type of ailment and you started looking for treatment, or you were trying to figure out how to resolve that. And right now with this full moon in Capricorn, maybe it has reached this point where you found a resolve and it's ending and you're able to heal yourself, and your physical ailment is not present much longer, right? Or maybe you're starting to see results of some working out that you've been doing, or like the result of a healthy diet. It's really changed your life on a daily basis because you've improved your routines. On the other hand, maybe you haven't, and now you're starting to reach a point where a lot of the bad habits and things that were stemming starting back in January are starting to kind of reach a point where you're like, oh shit, I think maybe I need to take care of myself right now, because now I'm starting to see some physical ailments because of it, or I'm just like super unhappy in my daily life because of it. And it's really starting to cause an imbalance in your mental health as well. And you're starting to see that some of your self-sabotaging behaviors are really starting to cause physical concerns and concerns with your health and concerns with your well-being. So that's where this opposition takes place, with the sun being in the 12th house. We're needing to balance out those aspects of ourselves that are subconscious, where we are responsible for our own undoing and our own health based off of the habits that we have on a daily basis, right? Which all starts the minute you wake up in the morning. What do? Do you go grab a quadruple shot of espresso? The only reason I say that is because I actually do that sometimes myself. And I'm having to kind of try to work on that too. So don't feel bad if that is what you reach for first thing in the morning. But I'm just saying it all starts the minute you wake up and making a conscious choice to do something a little bit different, right? So it's all about your well-being. Your well-being is definitely being highlighted and being brought into focus right now to see maybe you need to make adjustments, or maybe you need to celebrate and pat yourself on the back for a job well done. Really, this could also be a time when you really just need some rest and retreat because you are so overwhelmed and you are so busy at work. But what's nice about this whole dynamic is that it's making a sextile to Jupiter. 2 houses away over in Pisces, which is your 8th house. So this could maybe bring some type of benefit coming from a partner. So I don't know if maybe a partner's work is going to be changing and they're getting some type of promotion and you're going to be benefiting from that somehow financially, or maybe you're receiving some type of opportunity from some collaboration that you're doing with some type of person. And yeah, it requires work on your part, but the opportunities definitely outweigh the benefits. Or wait, I didn't say that correctly. The opportunities definitely outweigh any work that you might have to do, any toiling away that you might have to do. Or, you know, this is also the house of healing and transformation, and it's tied in with your 12th. So these are like all that well-being houses, and the houses where we have an opportunity to do some healing. So Jupiter may give you the resources, or may give you a person, or may give you some type of tool that you need in order to do the deep the deep regenerative spiritual healing that you need to kind of make this cathartic transformation. Maybe it has to do with your own intimacy issues surrounding sex, or some deep psychological complexes that you have stemming from some deep traumas that maybe came from childhood or your upbringing. But there's a potential here for you kind of to get deep into all of that and transform, which will really help not only your physical health, but your mental well-being as well. All right, Virgo rising and Virgo sun. So this full moon in Capricorn is going to be illuminating your 5th and 11th house axis. So the full moon will actually be taking place in the 5th house, which brings to the forefront topics of creativity, your authentic nature and how you express yourself. It also brings in things like children and the daily busyness of their recreational activities and all the hobbies and things that they have going on. And also, I don't want to forget the important one, dating and romance, duh. But first and foremost, I would like you to kind of go back in your own mind to around January 12th or 13th, depending on where you live, when we had that new moon in Capricorn. And just start thinking about things pertaining to this area of life that I just mentioned, and what were some of the things that you were maybe intending or seeding to happen at that time, and what you were starting to take action on that has started to unfold over this 6-month period, because this is all reaching a either completion, some type of culmination, or maybe there's something great that's happening that we need to celebrate, or something that's not so great that needs to be released. Let's be serious, okay? So basically, this could really make you very, very busy with your own sense of individual self-expression and a lot of maybe creative passion projects that you have going on, where you know, you're just super busy with that. Maybe there's not a whole lot of time to be with friends groups or maybe the organizations that you're involved in, and you're kind of trying to balance out the time that's being spent in these two areas of life. Or maybe it's your children's hobbies and things that are really pulling you in one direction, and you're super busy and all over the place, taking them to soccer practice and taking them to acting lessons, and then your daughter's got gymnastics, and it's like, man, I don't even have time to go after my own goals, or, you know, hang out with my friends, or like go to the groups where I am involved in, where we're all like-minded individuals and I can socialize and things like that. So it could definitely bring that into focus, where there's a need for balance. So then when we want to bring in the topic of dating and romance, there is a potential here that maybe there was somebody that you were interested in, or maybe you're just setting the intentions in general to start dating, to get out there, to meet people, to mingle, to maybe be intimate or find a partner or something. And maybe you've met somebody. Maybe somebody comes in and this is like this big pinnacle point where you're like, oh, interesting. I get to start dating and getting to know this person or whatever. Or there's also this really interesting sextile over to Jupiter, which is in your 7th house of partnership. Jupiter brings luck, it brings abundance, and it brings an expansion of things, and in a good way with this aspect. So maybe this person that you have been dating or something, or it's been a love interest, you're starting to be more serious with them, and there's some type of commitment, right? Because the 7th house could also rule over contracts and negotiations. Maybe we're serious enough here where there's some type of engagement or just a commitment in general, right? But also because it's a full moon and this can really go any way, we have to kind of assess where we're at. So maybe there is somebody that we're dating that hasn't really been the best for us. in terms of they're limiting us, they're holding us back and restricting us. This is Capricorn, a Saturn ruled sign that we're dealing with here. And maybe we need to learn how to establish some more boundaries. So we need to let this person go, and we need to kind of reassess where we're at in our lives with all of these different topics. So a fling that no longer resonates, and you just got to let them go, right? Maybe there's a creative pursuit that needs to be let go because we have so many things going on, so many hobbies, so many interests. We need to kind of figure out our time here and how we can manage our time a little bit better. Or maybe that happens with our children and everything that they have going on. But children dynamics could definitely come to the forefront right now. But maybe with this sextile over to Jupiter, there's a lot of support and harmony with you and your partner. And your partner is able to really give you the support that you need in order to kind of make this whole situation work and to bring in that balance that you need. Maybe he says, hey, go out and have fun with your friends one night. Go to that group, that women's circle that you like or something like that. And I'm going to take the kids for you. Okay. I'm going to entertain them. I'm going to take them to their soccer practice. I'm going to do all the things. But yeah, this could also potentially be luck and an opportunity of signing some type of contract or negotiation in order for you to really move forward with some type of something that you do, some type of creative pursuit, something that what you do because you really love to do it. This could be maybe you get signed for like an acting gig, or maybe you're a musician and you get a big deal and you sign some type of contract, or this could really play out in any way of this hobbies, creative interests, all of those types of things, and tied in with benefits and contracts and negotiations and people who could potentially benefit you in that area. But yeah, these are just a couple ways I see it playing out for you guys. Libra rising and Libra sun. So this full moon is going to be taking place on the axis of your 4th and 10th house. So basically it will be illuminating your 4th house, which is the house of home, family. It can have to do with your roots and your private life. It's the most private part of the chart, but it also can have to do with where you live, like your actual property and your home and things like that as well. So basically, before we move forward and talk about this a little bit further, I'd like for you to kind of take a look back in your own mind back to around January 12th or 13th, wherever you live. It'll depend on which day that is, but that is when the new moon was in Capricorn. So this is when we started seeding these intentions, or maybe started taking little baby steps, or just trying to imagine what it is that we want to create in this area of home and family, or maybe some type of dynamic started at that point. But now we are reaching a culmination point with this full moon. So things are maybe wrapping up, or reaching some sort of pinnacle, or basically maybe it's a time where we need to kind of reassess things and maybe let something go that's not really working out or no longer serves us. So what does this all mean? Because this is in the 4th house, maybe this is lighting up, maybe you decided you wanted to sell your house and you put your home up on the market or something like that, and now you've sold it. There's like contracts being signed or something like that. It actually sold after you put it on the market. Or maybe you are purchasing a home and something's being finalized and completed in regards to that right now. Or you decided to move and that's being finalized. So those are all potentials for sure. Or you maybe have some type of like home renovation or something that you were doing that's finally coming to a completion and that's being wrapped up. These are all potentials. But with this as well, you really could just be feeling the intensity and the desire to really need that rest, retreat, and reprieve. And you may be feeling like you really need to honor your private life, maybe in some way. There could just be home and family matters that are really coming to the forefront, maybe with a little bit of intensity right now, that are posing to be kind of a challenge. And it might be creating some sort of imbalance with your work life and what you're doing out in the world for your career. It even could potentially pose a little bit of a tension with maybe your boss or some type of authority figure at your job or what you're doing out for your career. And that's going to be requiring some type of balance or some type of integration where you're going to be able to bring those together seamlessly. So maybe you decide that you want to work from home or something like that. And that's going to be something that is being completed or reaching some sort of fulfillment at this time. Basically, maybe with this sextile, because we've also got a really big harmonious aspect here with the sextile over in your 6th house, to this full moon. It's with Jupiter. Jupiter is going to bring luck and expansion and abundance. So there is a potential here that maybe you get a new job, or maybe somebody in your family gets a new job that really benefits you and your family, potentially bringing in more finances or whatever it might be, but just really benefiting you guys in general. Yeah, it could potentially bring a financial change with your partners and your money, because you've also got Uranus in your 8th house too, which is sudden and unexpected change in that area of joint finance. So maybe there is potentially some type of health crisis, or a family member that might be struggling with a health crisis or something like that. But with this sextile over to Jupiter, there could potentially be some good news or some luck as it pertains to this condition that this person was experiencing, and that could really bring a lot of harmony and joy into the family. Or maybe you and your family start maybe a new health regime or a new diet, or you all start exercising or doing something really healthy together, which really helps to solidify the foundation and the health of your family. And there's a lot more harmony and just positive energy and everything, and optimism kind of flowing through the household. This could also, I would see too, which would be fun, is getting a new pet. It's Jupiter, which is luck and abundance and great things like that coming in through the 6th house and benefiting the 4th of the family, which is a pet. It could be a small animal of some sort, and just an expansion of the family through something that's super joyful and exciting like that. Also, let's see. I think that's pretty much, I think I'll go ahead and leave it at that, but we've covered the grounds of work and health and routine and pets. So yeah, I think that's good for you guys. Scorpio rising, Scorpio sun. This full moon will be illuminating your 3rd and 9th house axis, but specifically lighting up that 3rd house area. So that 3rd house, what does it represent? It represents things like communication and our mindset and mental processes. And it also has to do with our local environment and the busyness that goes on in that. And that can be anything from your office space to your neighborhood to your community involvement and the groups that you're associated with in your community, and short distance trips and things. So first and foremost, before we move forward, I want you guys to take a little jump back to January 12th or 13th, when that new moon in Capricorn was for you. And this would be the time when we started to seed or take steps to manifest whatever it is that's going on in our lives right now, whether that be for the better or worse, right? So right now is the time when we see these things culminate, we see them come to completion, or we realize that that didn't work out the way that we wanted and we didn't manifest at all, and we need to make some little tweaks and adjustments, right? So this could potentially really bring to focus some things that are going on in your immediate environment, because I like to think about this like our immediate environment is pretty much driven and created by the way that we think, because we do have an ability to take part in creating our experience, right? And if our mind is not right, then our environment will be all messed up. And then when our environment is all messed up, it will not be good for us and our mindset. So it's just like a vicious cycle that could potentially be going on right now, where our mind could be racing, and that's really being brought to light that maybe we need to get a little bit of a healthier relationship with the dynamics of our mind and kind of eradicate and let go of any type of negative thinking that's causing strife in our immediate environment. That is just one way that it could potentially come to light. This could also, because this is learning as well, but this is usually like skills that we learn or things that we learn to benefit our business. Like say you learn how to market yourself, or you learn Photoshop, or you take a course on how to do your taxes or something like that, right? And this could be the completion of that. That could be coming to some sort of culmination, and we could be ending that. So if that's you, congratulations, because the full moons can sometimes be a time of celebration when we've reached some point or some pinnacle like that. This could also be maybe some community organization or way that you were involved in your community of some way. Maybe this is coming to some sort of culmination, and maybe you're receiving an award or some sort for your hard work done in the community. Or maybe that is something that's ending, and maybe you're teaching, or you are doing some type of of teaching, with some type of educational pursuit that's also coming to some sort of ending. Basically, this also rules over short trips. So you may have an opportunity to do a little bit of short distance traveling. This is usually by car. And speaking of car, maybe you're purchasing a new car, or you maybe just signed a contract and you sold your car and you're going to be moving into another one, or a lease was up and you're going to be switching into another lease, because that full moon would be the perfect time to do something like that, right? Maybe it's technology. Electronics. You could be getting like a new computer or a new phone, or maybe your phone's had it. You've got to get a new one. So these are just all things that could be coming to the forefront here. Now, we've got that lovely sextile over to Jupiter, which is in your 5th house. So basically, I really feel like this could be a lot of support in the area of like your creative projects. And maybe it's that new skill that you learned and you're able to really kind of hone in on your creative projects, or whatever you're doing for your passion projects, because you've learned this new skill and it's really benefiting you in some way in that area of life. Maybe you've got a new computer, or maybe you got a new computer program, or it was gifted to you or something, and it's really helping to benefit your creative pursuits. Maybe you're a graphic designer and you just got gifted like Photoshop or something. I know that's pretty specific, but it's just to give you guys an example of how this could potentially play out. This could also be surrounding your children. There could be some type of luck or opportunity or situation where your child, and maybe the sports that they do through school, or maybe community organizations that they're involved in, and groups that they're involved in your neighborhood or something, maybe they're being recognized for that, or given an opportunity to explore that even further and take it to the next level. That could definitely play out in this way. And this is also really supportive energy of anybody who uses communication for a creative outlet or a hobby or something like that, like actors and singers. This is just super supportive energy for things like that. I like to think of the 3rd house too as like contracts as well, maybe just a little bit of a different type of contract than the 7th. Which are contracts that more so bind you to another person. So maybe there's some paperwork or like things that need to be done here to really take your creative pursuits and turn them into a business, or market yourself in some way, because this would also be the house of marketing, but you're gonna be really benefited and helped maybe by a person who comes in to help you with this, or some type of opportunity to get yourself out there on a grander scale and really promote yourself, your hobbies, what you do that brings you joy. And another way I see this too is just really being able to enjoy yourself, bring in more joy, bring in more fun, and being able to just enjoy life by taking maybe short trips, or hanging out with your neighbors or your cousins or your relatives and your siblings, right? And just kind of having fun and laughing and enjoying life. All right, Sagittarius rising, Sagittarius sun. So Sagittarius, this is lighting up your 2nd and 8th house axis, but it will specifically be illuminating your 2nd house, which is things like money. It's your resources. It's the avenues through which you bring in money and resources, right? And it's your possessions and things like that. It's also your sense of self-worth, which a lot of times is based off of the things that we own. So if you think about these topics and we take a jaunt in our minds all the way back to January 12th or the 13th, when that new moon in Capricorn was hitting, this is about the time that we started seeding our intentions of what we wanted to create, or maybe something was already beginning and in the works if we take our mind back to that time, because now 6 months later, we are starting to kind of see the fruition of this, or something is maybe being brought to a close or a completion, or we're starting to see that maybe we didn't manifest in a very good way at all, and we need to make some little tweaks and adjustments, or let some things go, or some things might be let go for us, I guess you could say. Now, just to give you a little bit more insight on how this could play out, maybe this is something that's being brought to light in terms of the way that you spend money. Maybe you haven't been saving in the ways that you really need to, and as responsible and disciplined with your money as possible. You do have that Capricorn 2nd house, so it's going to be important that you do have that sense of discipline. So maybe it's going to be really important and brought to light right now that you need to allocate your funds in a more responsible way, or maybe be more disciplined with creating a budget for yourself and starting to save on a more regular basis. I would also, yeah, so your resources, like I said, are definitely going to be under the microscope. There may even be some like power and control dynamics between you and how you make money and your resources with your partner. And maybe there's some dynamics coming to play with like, you don't like to share, your resources, and there's like some power dynamics going on with that. And, that's just one way that it could potentially play out. But I would say, with this also, this could also be a completion of a way in which you get money from a job or some source of some sort. It could be maybe you having to spend a little bit more money than you would have liked to, or maybe you are reaching this culmination point where you set this goal back in January where you wanted to save a certain amount of money so that you could spend it on some possession or some material thing that you wanted to purchase, or maybe you're saving for like a car or something like that. And you realize that you've just now saved enough money. And you're like, hell yes, I get to buy that thing, right? So this really could play out in many different ways depending upon you, the choices that you make. It has a lot to do with our karma because it's Capricorn. It's a Saturn-ruled sign. Saturn rules karma. But also, this is making a sextile over to Jupiter, which is in your 4th house of family, which could potentially bring benefits and resources from family members or from parents in some way, shape, or form. You could be receiving some money. You could also be benefiting your family members somehow with maybe these resources that you've saved up and you feel like you want to help them in some way. Since this is dealing with home matters, maybe you are going to get that lucky break to purchase a home or to move, and you have all of those resources because you've been working so hard for them. And now you've got the time, or maybe you decide that you want to invest in properties and you get like the money that you need to purchase these properties that you can then flip, and you're getting, everything is just kind of falling into place and happening really harmoniously because you've done a lot of the hard work. You've saved all this money and you've put all this time and effort into getting yourself where you need to be in order to make these kinds of things happen. This also has to do, like I said, with our self-worth and the way that we value money. This could also, with Jupiter, it could be an expansion of our belief systems, or maybe some of our blockages in our beliefs that could have stemmed from childhood or our conditioning we received from our parents that could have been preventing us from bringing in abundance that we truly want and need in our lives. So Jupiter could be really helping us to expand our mind and remove those blockages. And then it could also just be maybe you want to do some renovations on your home, and this is really supportive energy that's helping you, giving you the resources. Maybe you find the perfect contractor or something that does beautiful work and he's open and ready to help you guys. So who knows? I just give many examples because there's so many different ways that this could play out. Capricorn Sun and Capricorn Rising. This is going to be lighting up and illuminating your 1st and 7th house axis, but specifically really bringing to light your 1st house. So this brings into focus you, who you are as a person, your identity, and how that could potentially change or maybe not change. And your body, your physical appearance, the way that you look, the way that people perceive you, because it's the first impressions people get when they meet you, right? And when our identity changes, the impression changes. So this is bringing you to the forefront. You are under the microscope. You are under the lens and under the spotlight. So this is really kind of showing that maybe you've been doing a lot of inner work. So say you have. Let's go back to January 12th or 13th. That was when the new moon in Capricorn was. So if you think about what was going on with you at that time, maybe you decided that there were some things about you that you wanted to work on. Maybe you were starting some type of self-development program, or you were starting to read self-help books, or you really diving into working hard on yourself, being a little bit more disciplined with your health or with your body or whatever it might be. And now that we've reached this Capricorn full moon, we're starting to see the results of that. You're starting to see the benefits of all of that hard work that you've done to help shift your identity, to help change the person that you are, right? And then in return, everybody perceives you differently. So really it changes things all around because people see you differently, you see the world differently, and you are feeling more comfortable in your skin. That is potentially one way that this could play out. But this could also really bring into focus maybe the fact that you aren't taking good enough care of yourself. Maybe you're starting to see some of the things that started back in January have really resulted in you maybe over-sacrificing yourself for your relationships, partnerships, business partnership, or any of those types of things. And that maybe you've been letting yourself fall to the wayside. And there's aspects of you, there's qualities of your personality and things that need to be released and let go of in order for you to truly grow and expand in healthy ways, right? This could even have a lot to do with your health and your overall vitality and your body and how you take care of yourself. That maybe you have some issues with your physical appearance or something like that, that needs to be resolved, or maybe there's little tweaks that need to be made and things that need to be released that are no longer serving you. I think that this really could be maybe even having power struggles with other people. Maybe people are trying to control you in some way and you need to somehow set healthier boundaries with them. Maybe they come from a place of wanting to protect you and they know what's best, but really truly you need to kind of take your power back and stand in your sense of independence. Stand in your own power, right? Because this is all about power. This is all about boundaries and the limitations that can be placed on us by others or by ourselves, because it's a Saturn-ruled sign. Basically, yeah, so just maybe shining some light on how you restrict yourself, how others might restrict you, the limitations that are placed on you through your own ego, right? And the way that you approach the world. Maybe it's that you are just driven constantly for status and like trying to achieve and get validation from other people, to the point where you're almost like losing yourself and not realizing that everybody holds the answer within and that everything that you have is inside of you and you don't need all this big grand stuff, I almost said it, in order to get where you want to go in life, right? It helps, but you don't want to base your identity off of that, pretty much. So these are just a couple of the ways that I see that, but really there is some harmony, and it's really nice seeing this sextile from this full moon over to Jupiter. Jupiter being the planet of luck and expansion, abundance, and wisdom and growth, all of these beautiful things. So Jupiter is in retrograde, making this more internal experience, right? And it's in the house of your mindset and your mind and the inner workings of your like cerebral functioning. And this could really help to expand the way that you think about yourself, the way that you think about the world, the way that you kind of break things down and understand them and are able to kind of step into a new and improved version of yourself, because you have changed the way that you think about things. You have changed the relationship that you have with your thoughts, which can be a huge dynamic shift. I'm sure if you've ever had a shift like that, you totally understand what I mean, but your thoughts are so, so important to the overall health of who you are as a person and the way that you operate out in the world. I think that also this could be you benefiting tremendously in your life somehow from learning a new skill, or getting an opportunity to learn through a teacher, or some opportunity to take a course where you're learning a new skill that will really help to benefit you or help you to grow, expand, and develop in some way. So it could even potentially be somebody that you meet in your community, or through some community organization or somewhere local to you that's really helping you to grow and expand, right? Maybe some type of self-help group or something that you might go to. Exploring your independence and finding yourself through travel, because it's interesting, Jupiter rules foreign countries and foreign travel, but it is in the house of like local environments. So I don't know if maybe you're just going to be exploring, different states in the United States, or doing some little trips, which just is really giving you a sense of independence and helping you to kind of find yourself, because this is definitely indicative of an identity shift. Or just some culmination of a person that you are becoming, which is really beautiful as well. Positive shifts in your mindset, the way that people see you. So yeah, I think this is overall really positive for you in becoming this new person, or reaching a pinnacle of a person that you have been becoming, that was a tongue twister. All right. Aquarius rising, Aquarius sun. This full moon will be occurring for you in some challenging houses. So this is going to be happening in the 12th house and the 6th, but specifically that full moon will light up the 12th house. The 12th house is a place of subconscious that rules over the subconscious realms. So a lot of those things that are not conscious to us are things that are somehow blocking us or creating some type of instability in our lives, or they could be ways in which we sabotage ourselves, like addictions and just different behaviors like that that may come to the forefront or be illuminated for you at this time. This is also our mental health and things like that as well. But being that this is in opposition with the sun in the 6th house, this could really just bring health issues to the surface in general. First and foremost, let's take a look back at about January 12th to the 13th. This is when the new moon in Capricorn was occurring. So everything that we talk about past this point, you can kind of go back to that January time frame and start thinking about some of the things that were going on potentially in relation to these topics. And maybe what you were seeding at that time, maybe some of the behaviors, whether they be good or bad, habits and patterns that maybe were developing at this time that could have been playing into the culmination, fruition, or completion that is occurring now 6 months later at this full moon. So going back to these 12th house topics, this could even potentially be the culmination of maybe some health crisis or some concerns that, one, for the worst case scenario, maybe end you up in the hospital, or if it was some type of addiction or habit or pattern, it could end you up in some type of rehabilitation place, or maybe this is just where you decide that it's time that you go get some mental help. This would be a really good time for counseling or therapy, or maybe even some spiritual way of doing this, maybe past life regression, where you're able to get into the subconscious mind to really find out what your blockages are and heal from a very deep level stemming back from many lifetimes, if that's something that you're interested in. But being that you're Aquarius, it probably is. I would also say that this could potentially really just bring the focus on this intense need to go inward and really focus on resting and retreating away from the world. This is the house of solitude, seclusion, and isolation, the place that we go to recharge. So I think that the focus really is going to be on you just really taking care of yourself, your physical health, your mental health, really trying to maybe explore, if you have the opportunity, the ways in which you might create your own problems in life, and maybe thinking about how you can transcend some of those things, right? Going deep into that subconscious mind. So basically, like I said, this is a really great time for rest, for retreat. And it's going to be in sextile with Jupiter. Jupiter is a really great planet, full of abundance and benefits, so that is really bringing some ease to this dynamic. But it's coming from your second house of your money, your resources, and finances and your possessions and things like that. So maybe there's going to be some type of opportunity for a financial windfall or a gift that comes in that brings you money and resources so that you are able to take that rest and retreat, or that much needed vacation away to some retreat center or ashram or something like that, or yoga retreat, or maybe it's some silent meditation retreat or something like that, where you're able to kind of go rest and restore yourself. Or maybe you get some type of financial benefit where you're able to go get rehabilitation or the therapy that you need, and you actually have the resources to go and do that, which a lot of people don't have those resources. So in my opinion, that would be a huge gift, which would be something that Jupiter would bring, which in the long run might not look like it's a benefit to you now, if somebody's stuck in that kind of mindset. And trust me, I know, because I've been there in my life for sure. And but really in the long run, that this could really promote healing and help this person tremendously. But really, this could be helping you remove subconscious blockages, which are causing you to be blocked from bringing in money, from bringing in abundance and things like that. So it's really great. Jupiter could potentially bring in that abundance because you've been doing the work to remove those blockages and work on the subconscious mind and all of your thoughts and everything like that too. Also, the 12th house is indicative of loss. So maybe this is some type of, like I said, financial windfall that could help you recover from maybe a financial loss that has happened previously. maybe some type of, maybe you've been having some really challenging issues with money and finances, and Jupiter is bringing in some type of job or resource or just a lump sum of cash or something like that. These are just a couple of different ways that this could play out. Pisces and Pisces rising. So this full moon in Capricorn illumination is happening in your 11th and 5th house axis, but primarily lighting up the 11th house, which brings in topics like friends. It also brings in topics like social life and social networks, technology, the internet, the groups that we're involved with that have, similar goals and similar interests that we do. And it does rule our goals and our hobbies and our goals and our interests and our dreams for where we want to go in the future. So with all of that said, let's go, before we move forward, let's take a trip backwards in time to January 12th or 13th when the new moon in Capricorn occurred. So the new moon in Capricorn is a good marker point for where we started to set intentions or where things started to kind of make movement, where we started to take action maybe on some goals that we had or we were trying to manifest, or maybe where we didn't, and where we look back and we see that maybe some of our tendencies that were unconscious that were playing out at that time are having repercussions now, and little adjustments may need to be made. So for this, for instance, I just wanted to bring that time back so you can do a little bit of backtracking maybe after this. And so we've got this full moon. It's taking place in this house of friends. So what could this mean? I would say maybe this is happening in a couple of different ways. Maybe you started hanging out with some people back in January and you're starting to see that maybe they are not the best for you. And this is a time when that's kind of reaching this completion and you're like, yeah, I need to maybe move on from this friends group. We don't really share the same social interests anymore. I've changed a lot as a person, and I think that I need to just let these individuals go, or maybe this one individual go. So this could be a time of release for that. Or it could happen on the flip side where you were setting intentions, or you just met maybe a group of friends back in January. You really wanted to meet some good friends. And maybe some friend comes into your life at this point right now, where you have started hanging out with a group of friends that has maybe the same type of humanitarian pursuits and interests as you do, or maybe some of the same goals and just interests in general that you do. And it's really reaching a culmination point. You're starting to really get involved with these people and your social life is blossoming potentially. And if so, that's a really great thing to celebrate, and I'm very happy for you. So this is really interesting because it could be maybe a goal or some type of hope or dream that you had for yourself and your future that was set in motion back in January that's starting to really come to some sort of fruition. You're starting to see it blossom. It's like this big, beautiful tree that's blossomed and now it's blooming fruit. So something that you really set into motion is blooming right now, which is fantastic. This could even be having to do with, like, if you have a following of some sort on the internet, maybe you have a social networking page, or maybe you put videos out there like this or something like that, and you're starting to really grow or see this growth and this fruition point of the growth of what you're trying to build, right? And also, let's see, I think that this could potentially just bring some type of emotional intensity with a friendship. It could bring some type of dynamic in that really needs to be explored in some way. Then let's go ahead and look at it from a different perspective. So we've got a positive outlet here where Jupiter, the planet of luck, expansion, growth, wisdom, and abundance, is going to be in a nice harmonious sextile in the sign of Pisces in your first house of who you are as a person and your identity and your personality. So I think that there's a really great opportunity for you as a person and who you are and your personality to fit in really well with this group of friends that maybe you're involved with, and they're bringing you a lot of joy. It's bringing you just so much harmony, and maybe potentially these individuals are really helping you to grow and to expand in ways that you never really believed was possible, right? There's also a potential too here that I guess maybe your fulfillment of goals and like the hard work that you put in on your aspirations towards what you want to achieve out in the world is really helping you to grow and expand, and it's changing your identity, because when we achieve certain things, we keep changing. You go through a million identity changes in your entire life, right? So that automatically will change the way that you see the world, the way that the world sees you, right? Maybe you're involved in some type of group or organization that's like involved with physical fitness or something like that, and it's really helping you to get into shape, which is changing you as a person. Or maybe this is just a positive group that's all business minded, and they're helping you to grow in terms of being a business minded person or something like that. This is just a couple different ways. I just give you guys many examples so you can kind of wrap around what is going on in your life. You know, this might not hit it exactly, but yeah, you could also potentially have the opportunity to learn from somebody who's like an ally, or somebody who's has a lot of authority or is really beneficial in their business or in your field or something like that, really helping you to also, once again, grow as a person and expand in the person that you are. But I think that that's pretty much it for now. I hope that you guys all really enjoyed your readings this week. Mercury retrograde, it was really, really challenging. I've been filming this for like the past 6 hours because my mind wasn't working correctly. My camera was having a bunch of problems. It was just, you know, but I love you guys and I wanted to get this out there and so that you guys would have all of this details for this week. But if you really enjoyed this content, please help this channel and like that video below, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, let me know how it resonates with you. I love to hear feedback from you guys, and by liking the video, you let YouTube not only know that you like this kind of content, but you also let them know that you like my channel and that my channel would be beneficial to other people. And I would very much appreciate that. But I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for just being here, being part of this community, and supporting me on this journey, right, of self-exploration and helping everybody else explore themselves through astrology. But once again, I'm gonna leave you guys, but I will see you next week. Once I get some time, I'm gonna make some awesome additional content that's astrological and spiritual. But for now, peace and namaste, my friends. I hope you have an amazing week.